matter. Thanks so much for tuning in to Real Health. If you've just joined us, we're discussing stress and the holistic impact it has on our bodies. I've been reading Stress Solutions by Dr. Irene van der Merwe. You'll remember her. She's done quite a few inserts on the show, and she's saying in this book, areas in our brain that contribute to cognitive and emotional function, i.e. memory and concentration, can be permanently damaged by unrelenting stress. And this is why we're talking about the impact of stress, because it affects our entire bodies, all the various systems in our bodies. It affects our gut health. It affects our, as I've just mentioned now, our cognitive functions as well. What other type of impact are we starting to see that people aren't linking to the stress that they're experiencing in their life?
What I find, Stacey, is feeling people's bodies, their whole dural membrane surrounding the brain and the spinal cord actually contracts from high levels of stress. And over time, that will obviously affect your entire functioning of your nervous system. So it'll affect, obviously your body's in fight or flight, which shuts down all your sphincters in your digestive system, reduces blood supply to the organs. That will also affect your nutritional absorption, which will affect your hormone balances and all of those knock-on effects. But it can obviously affect their blood supply to their brain and the efficiency of the fluid movement around the brain, the cerebrospinal fluid around the brain. So, of course, your memory and your concentration is going to be affected as well.
What are you seeing, Yashanta?
So I'm seeing a lot of subclinical diseases.
Okay.
So it's not overt symptoms that you're finding, but I'm finding a cluster of symptoms that are coming up, and they're usually fatigue, lack of energy, low concentration, lack of motivation, and then you're seeing other things like blood sugar irregularities, lots and lots of hormonal stuff. So I deal a lot with endocrine, and I'm seeing lots of thyroid, lots of diabetes, lots of female-related problems as well that are knock-on effect of prolonged stress. So it's I hate to say it's the whole body, but it is the whole body that's affected.
Yeah, and of course, Ian, when stress affects the body, then the body affects stress, right? Am I making sense of it? So the body affects how one can manage that stress. So it's that consistent back and forth between the two.
Yeah, like the 3 Ps I mentioned earlier. The physiological stress is it's a semi-disease state that is a stress to the body. So it'll stress the mind. It makes us not feel so good. It can be a feed-forward mechanism that just keeps going, keeps us in a loop. So we do sometimes really need to smell the roses to pull ourselves out of a stress state. And sometimes it needs something quite big to rattle the cage of somebody's mind to actually step back.
Is that usually a traumatic event, or is it painting a picture of where this person is going to go end up if they don't manage the stress? What would that be?
It totally depends on the person. I mean, I had a woman in my clinic yesterday who was, early 30s at the stage of burnout. Adrenals were definitely compromised, thyroid was compromised, memory was compromised. She was opening up to the point that she is stressed and she does need to do something about it. But then I deal with a lot of stressed execs, and some of them will just push, deny. Something will happen in maybe their 50s. Maybe they're strong enough to last to their 50s without doing anything, but then bang goes the heart attack, or first diagnosis of cancer or something really major. And that turns a lot of people around, but funnily enough, it doesn't turn other people around. So it's very much a personality, upbringing, culture, all these different things come into the way people deal with stress.
I think, I don't know, something about my journey of being a little bit more open and authentic with people helped a lot with my stress, because it's sort of like, well, now it's off my shoulders. That monkey is off my back. I told you that I struggle with adrenal fatigue and hypothyroidism. I've shared the pictures of eczema flare-ups. And so now I feel like I actually stress less about that, And of course, it is a bit scary to continue on that journey and to start sharing other forms of stress, So maybe it's relationship issues or personal issues. But it's about literally getting that stuff out of your system. That's what you would do on a daily basis in terms of a touch and a tactile experience with your clients.
Yes, I mean, and I talk throughout the, you know, some clients want to talk throughout the session as well. So while they're having physical releases in their body and we're stretching and releasing the whole membrane system, sometimes emotion will come up and they'll actually have the release and experience it and tell me what that was about. Or, you know, some people experience it and do it in their own space, in sort of more of a meditative space. But I find especially talking about it and talking about what you're feeling and why you've developed, because obviously, for example, severe tension headaches is, you know, creating a physiological impact on their body from the stress. So if they talk about what triggered that, you know, I'll always take them back to the place of when did that start? You know, when did the tension headache start? And sometimes they won't realize until we start talking about it more in depth, and then they'll realize that was when my mother was extremely ill, or that was when my child was diagnosed with an illness, or there was a car accident that they weren't even necessarily involved in. So it wasn't whiplash, but, you know, it makes them start to recognize that the emotional level, as soon as it reached a point where they weren't coping, that's when their body started to take on too much and was.
In its infinite wisdom, the body knows. The reason why I actually mentioned the interplay is, like, if you take, for example, we live in a world where we say people are becoming fatter and fatter. They, you know, obesity is a problem that we're dealing with. Diabetes is what we're dealing with. Yet the stress of wanting to lose weight is also affecting people as well.
Definitely. And I think a lot of the psychological aspect of being overweight or trying to lose weight has got a lot to do with the person's appearance and how they want to be perceived in the world. So people who feel overweight feel that people don't look at them in the same way as someone would look at a thin person, for example. And that stress alone causes them an emotional loop where they would eat to comfort themselves. First of all, is that awareness. And then second is breaking that cycle to actually allow them to express what hidden insecurities they have within themselves that will allow them to heal. And that can be helped with anything, with therapy. Physically, it's also good to help, but a lot of the stress issues with obesity, for example, come from a psychological aspect. So everything is a lot deeper than what you see on the surface.
Are you guys seeing an increase in body dysmorphia?
Definitely, especially with teenagers, you know, and male and female, not just teenage girls, teenage boys as well. And I think it's all of this, like we were talking about earlier, the digital age.
Stuff,
they're seeing all these pictures on the Instagram and the Facebook, and why don't I look like that? And why, you know, being accepted and the friends, and it's creating, you know, such an issue in society that we don't all just sort of learn how to love ourselves. And I feel like there's such a lack in school of teaching children, or teaching even, you know, growing adults. There's the key tools in life of self-love, meditation, calming the mind, relaxation techniques. You know, the focus is all on too much academic, which, yes, that is important, but if you don't know how to calm yourself, or you don't know how to meditate and clear your mind and relax your body, because that's so much healing happens in those moments.
It's that switching off, that unplugging. It's been proven that just going out and being in nature can help reduce stress significantly. And being in nature is not just, it's not going out for a hike or a walk, it's just being in your garden. You know,
just
taking the time out.
Barefoot on the grass. You know.
We've become very mechanistic, and I deal with a lot of executive stroke sports people. So to deal with their stress, they're out training for an Ironman or something crazy, and very much overburdening their adrenal system, the whole endocrine and nervous system. And that's their way of dealing with stress, but on an unconscious level, they don't realize that they're kind of pushing themselves, but they are, and often really unfolds. And talking about weight management, if the endocrine system's disrupted and your adrenals are flat and your thyroid's flat, weight management becomes very, very difficult to do. You know, okay, I did this diet last year and I had great results. This year I did the same diet and I'm still fat. So they train harder, they eat less, and become
exacerbates the stress.
Get on a train, and their body gets into a very compromised, depleted state, and it gets harder and harder to deal with that weight and the stress until they eventually realize what they're doing and can step back.
Story of my life, actually. Until I had that moment, you know, so it's again, that aha moment. I hope you get an aha moment while watching this as well. Disease or dis-ease is often the manifestation of chronic long-term stress. Well, harboring emotions like bitterness, anger, fear, and worry result in a consistent stress response that can become embedded in cell memory. Yes, in cell memory. When we come back, we look at how to manage stress throughout our lifespan.
I'm feeling better.